How's everybody doing today? It's Brian here with Fishing Hype Outdoors, and we are on the Big O doing a little something different than what most people do. We are throwing a hard jerkbait. Yes, a regular hard jerkbait just like you would in the wintertime on any other lake for suspended fish. We are throwing a high buoyancy one that's an actual floater. Everybody's all trying to get all these high-end crankbaits that all suspend and stuff in the wintertime on these clear body water. We're actually going the opposite. We want this bait to float, and we're almost twitching it on top and letting it dig down. It's only going down maybe 1.5 feet, 2 foot at the most, and we're throwing it right on the edge of the grass where you got these big mats, and there's some old boat lanes and just areas that this grass doesn't grow up as high. Most of this is high drill out here. What we're doing is we're just making some paralleling the edges of this thick stuff and catching those cruisers that aren't tucked up underneath. They're just out there looking out for some lunch, and you'd think throwing this thing up here in all this thick vegetation you'd be hung all the time, but you're not trying to throw it up in the real thick stuff. You're just trying to leave it right here, right on the edges of everything. Every now and again, yeah, you're going to drag it through and get hung up, but if you can get a good clean cast and get it come all the way back to you clean, those fish can't resist it. It's down there jerking around looking like a shiner, just like when we're shiner fishing. That shiner's down there swimming, trying to get away and whatnot. And that's a lot like what this jerkbait looks like when it's down there jerking around, and you're letting it kill and come to the top, and you can pop it on top, reel it real slow, and almost use it like a wake bait. And they can't resist it. Oh, one just came after right there and slashed after. When they're on it, there you go. I missed him again. Dang it. When they're on it, they can miss it like that, and a lot of times you give it a couple more. Don't kill it and leave it there. Just kind of keep it going like it's an injured bait fish, and they'll roll up and get it every time on the second or third try. Some guys will still use mono for this. I like using a light braid, 20-pound braid. It's still nice and thin, but that way when if you do get it hung up in the grass, a good hard snap will rip it out. There's one. And if you do get a fish on like that and they get you buried down in, you can pull up on them and rip it up out of the grass. Just like that. Not a giant, but definitely a fun fish. Get out there again and try it. I like a little longer, not a real long rod, but I like something 7 foot to about 7.3, and a medium to medium heavy action. I want good backbone, just for the fact that when these fish get buried up in this grass, I want to be able to have some strength to pull them out. I'm not worried about them being in wide open water like you would on a lot of lakes when you're fishing this. I still want a soft tip, because you need to be able to cast it. If you got too strong of a rod, when you go to load up, it's not going to cast very well. And you don't want it so, you don't want such a heavy rod that you're going to tear the hooks out. But you definitely want one strong enough something with enough backbone that when you do get one on, he isn't going to take you right up in all that grass and get off. So I leave my drag backed off about the same as I would if I was fishing open water, just because I don't want them. I don't want to tear the hooks out, but I've got enough drag and I can put my thumb on there if I need a little more pressure. There, you got it. That was a different fish right there. That way I can put my thumb on there if I get a bigger fish on, and I can kind of thumb him if he's trying to take off on me. They get it, they've got it. Another nice fish. wind and high water we've had is blowing in this mat. So the guys aren't going through here anymore. It's kind of giving us a nice little open area to throw this without boats running through us. This is a great way to catch them, like right away in the morning or on a cloudy day. But as you can see today, I mean, we're bluebird skies. Just got a storm last night. These fish are still coming up eating this thing. You kind of got to watch where you throw it. You don't want to get it hung way up into some of this stuff, or otherwise you're going to be just mad all day as you're trying to get it out. Just throw it right down the sides. Look for the areas to look for, especially if you can't see the grass topped out. Like here, I can tell you got grass on both sides. Grass on both sides, and we got an open channel in the middle. But you get out here in some of this open water, you can't quite tell where the tallest grass is and the shorter grass. And look where the ripples on the water are. If it's slick, usually that grass is right to the top or just underneath the surface. And if you can throw it in a channel where the ripples are, that's usually going to be an area that the grass is a little bit shorter, and that's allowing that water to ripple over top of it. Your cadence can be anywhere from fast to just barely twitching it. And I found some days they want it barely under and barely twitched, almost like you're just working a wake bait. And other days they want it really snapped around. I do know one thing I have found is just don't kill it. You know, if you miss a strike sometimes in the middle of winter on, you know, say Table Rock or even Kentucky Lake or some of those, and you're twitching it and you miss one, you just want to kill it and leave it. I have found that if you just keep moving it, you don't have to keep jerking it real hard, but just keep it moving. Like, and I think what happens is they think they've injured it, and they're going to come back and get it. It's still going, and they don't want it to get away. And they'll come back. I mean, I've had them today come back 3-4 times and finally get it on that last roll. But it seems like if I miss one and I kill it, I don't get bit. Too, you can let that thing pop right back up on top because it is a high floater. It gets up there and just give it a twitch. You can almost pop it on top like a twitch bait. Kind of pop it on top and give it that top water action, or like I said, real slow, almost like a wake bait. Just leave it right on top, and then every now and again give it a twitch. But it seems like today, the higher the sun gets, the more they just want it under. I mean, they'll come up. They won't come up and eat a top water bait, but they'll come up within a few inches of the surface and grab this thing. So don't be afraid if you see a little point of weeds or something sticking out, doesn't look real thick. Throw it up by that and kind of bring it through there. And once you get it up to it, just give it a hard snap to, you know, if you can feel it hanging up, just give it a hard snap to blow out of there. Almost like, I've had a lot of times I've had a rattle trap bite that way, you know, or even a crankbait bite where you reel it down into the weeds and snap it and get it free, and that's when the fish eat it. And I've had a lot of fish do that so far where I've just, you know, I'm working along and it gets hung up, and just give it a good hard snap to blow it out of there, to get it out of it. And as soon as it blows through and gets on the other side or gets broke free, I've had them come up and eat it too. that's one thing. That's why I really like that using a lighter braid versus a mono. Just for the simple fact, when you're trying to jerk that through that grass or get it hung up, that mono just gives so much. It helps it float, but it just, I don't get the fighting. You know, I just don't feel like safe using that with fish getting down into the grass and or when I'm trying to pop this thing free. That braid just did. Anytime I'm around grass, I want to use braid as much as I can. It seems like so far today, our best areas have been where you've got a real hard to find line. Like here, we're kind of starting to lose the hard edge, or what I would call the hard edge of the mat. It's breaking up a little bit more. Most of the fish I've caught so far today doing this has been along a hard edge where those fish can't spread out as much. Nice thing about using this is it's a lot like using a fluke style type bait. You can just move it a lot faster, keep it in the strike zone a little bit longer. Got some rattle and some noise to it and a little bit more flash. Yeah, you got to throw it in a little bit more open area, but when those fish are there, they'll definitely come over to chase it down. Where when you're throwing stick worm or throwing a fluke style bait, you're throwing it up there, you're kind of throwing it up, letting it sink, give it a twitch, let it sink again, and it's just, this is a much faster way to cover ground and catch those active fish. It's a great way, a great bait to catch schooling fish. You watch the seagulls around and they'll start, some of these fish out here will start schooling and busting shad. And it's a great way to get over there and catch those fish that are, they may not come up and get your topwater bait. It's a real great bait to throw out there and just get under the surface a little bit more on those schooling fish and catch those that won't commit to coming up on your topwater. Color selection, I try to keep something down here anyhow. I'm using something that's bright, some chartreuses, gold, your normal blue and silver or blue and chrome, some silver bone can work. Something that's got some flash to it. I mean, it's a reaction bite. The water's a little bit off color down here. It's got kind of a tannic color to it, so you don't have gin clear. This is about as clear as I've seen it all day, but it's still kind of got that tannic color to it. So something that's going to give off a little flash and get it noticed. You don't want a suspending bait. You definitely want something that's gonna float and come back up, because you want to be able to use it like a wake bait. You just want to be able to twitch it and have it just under the surface. And the biggest thing, even with the suspending baits, what'll happen is once you get it down, it stays down in that realm, and if you get it down there too far, these baits here will kind of come right across the top of the grass. You're still going to find some spots where it comes to the surface and you're going to get hung in it a little bit, but you get that suspending bait and it's going to be down in the grass almost all the time. You're going to get a couple good twitches out of it and it's going to be right down in that grass area. You want something that's going to come up over the top of it. It's what's going to help you out. So just don't get used to always buying those suspending baits. If you're going to fish this shallow water, you want something that's going to float. thing you'll get with this braid is that front hook, just kind of like you do on topwater baits, that front hook will want to come back around and get caught up in the hook. It's the one thing that I haven't tried doing the mono leader. I just get down here in this grass and get a big fish on. I don't trust having that mono leader on the front of it. So I just put up with having that front hook hung every once in a while. And you might go 15, 20 casts without it getting hung, and then you might have 2, 3 casts where it does get hung, but I'll take those couple times of it getting hung and not losing a fish than worrying about on hanging it. Eat it like that head first, then you know you're doing everything right. So you want them to eat a crankbait, jerkbait, any of that stuff. You want that. When you see that bait in their head first, you know they're eating it right. Whatever you're doing, the reaction, the color, whatever you're putting on it, you know that's what the fish want. When they're barely grabbing it and they're barely getting it on the back hook, they're swiping at it, and you're kind of sticking them in the side of the face. That's when you know you got to change action, change color. When they eat it good like that, you know you're doing everything right. And it's just a matter of getting it in front of them. Make long casts with this, you can make short pitches with it. It's not like you're trying to stay far away and get that bait down to a certain depth, so you're trying to make a really long cast. If you need to make a real precise cast into a certain spot, don't be afraid to make a short cast. I mean, this water's, you know, especially when you're fishing dingy water or a lot of cover, those fish you're not gonna spook them as much as you are in that open, clear water. Around this grass, if you can find yourself a little point, maybe a little cut in it, a little pocket or whatever, maybe a little cut through. Definitely, any of that stuff that's just different than having a straight bank is all worth throwing at. A lot of times those little cut throughs, little boat paths or whatever, you get some wind blowing, it'll create a little current through there and set those fish up in. Some of these points in these pockets along these thick mats like this, they'll act just, especially if there's a little bit of current, they'll act just like a point in a river or a point down on a flat on a bar somewhere that's got, you know, river current or lake current around it. The bait fish are going to blow around that. They'll set up on them. Even some of these pockets, what will happen is the fish will chase his bait up into those pockets. You can get a little pocket that might have 2, 3 fish in it. And it may not look like much. Just, you know, might only be a boat width wide and a boat width deep. But spot for these fish to come out here and push bait into and be able to have an escape route going out the back side. So not only do you got a couple points right here, you also got the two channels kind of coming into it. This would be a good little pocket for him just to push his bait up into. Ambush. I can tell just a little bit of wind that's blowing. It's already creating a little bit of current coming through this one. That's someplace you want to give a couple, 3 casts to. These fish will definitely get positioned in there a certain way. Here's one. Oh, look at that. Big old crappie. Look at the size of that one. On the jerkbait. There's a stud of crappie. Heck, you never know what you're going to catch on them. Look at that dude right there. Boy. Nice fish. Fishing here is more of a main lake flat. We're just on the outside edge of the grass. Where we were earlier was more of a kind of a boat lane. You had hard edge on both sides. Here you just got the hard edge on one side. This doesn't have quite as much grass out underneath the boat either, considering from here out there's just kind of open water. Bass are just like deer. They like an edge. They're going to follow along this edge. Some of them are going to get up underneath that real thick stuff, and other ones will just cruise this edge looking for bait. Hopefully, bring this jerkbait by them. They think it's their bait eater. Too soon. I seen him swirl up on it. He didn't quite have it. You can almost tell when that line gets wrapped around that front hook, that bait doesn't want to dive a little bit like it should. It just wants to skip right across the surface. So it's pretty easy to tell when it's messed up. Not a giant, but another one. Been a fun day throwing that jerkbait. Decent fish, nice chunky fish. Well, that's throwing a jerkbait on the Big O. I hope everybody, hope you kind of learned a little something from it. If you guys haven't thrown one out here, just, don't be afraid to throw it. You're going to get hung up a little bit. You're going to get frustrated sometimes. You throw it in the wrong spot and it's going to get hung up some. Might get that line wrapped around that front hook and get a little bit frustrated with that. But overall, get out there, throw that bait, throw that jerk bait, and you'll definitely put some extra fish in your boat. So until next time, tight lines. This is Brian, the Fishing Hype Outdoors.